life,
kindness,
people and places,
sincerity,
love,
integrity.
the incredible universe. You're listening to the Living Out Loud podcast with Natasha Moy and Dr. Vincent, where we talk about life, love, and the universe. You're listening to the Living Out Loud podcast with Natasha Moy and Dr. Vincent, where we talk about life, love, and the universe. Today we have another fantastic interview with Kelly Van Nelson. I hope that I said that right. I try to put a little bit of my South African spin onto the van, so I can, get in there a little bit. But this incredible woman is a poet, an activist, a businesswoman. She's been nominated and has won awards across the board, and we are so excited to interview her, not only because she has a poetry, what do you call a poetry, a group of poets, a group of poetry, I want to say anthology, but it's not. What would it be?
Sort of just a poetry collection.
Is it a poetry
anthology
collection?
works.
An anthology. I thought
Yeah.
that, an anthology is not bad. I thought that would be all right. But you have this beautiful mix of the spoken word, which is so creative, and then you're the MD of Adecco, which is a massive human resources business, which is all about people and jobs and money, and so you really are just two sides of a coin, really. And so welcome, Dr. Vincent.
Thank you. It's really, really great to have you on our podcast, a friend to our show, which is how we call our guests, because we will have a friendly talk, friendly chat, and hopefully this chat with you will inspire not only us, but also people who are listening.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
So the interesting thing about, when I thought about having a chat to you, I was fascinated. We're in the middle of COVID, and it seems like we're going to be in the middle of COVID for a really long time. I keep saying we're in the middle of COVID in the hope that eventually the next interview we might be out of COVID. But it doesn't seem to be coming to an end anytime soon. We've now been doing months of this. And obviously, one side of your life has been massively affected, I would imagine, with the human resource and jobs and all the rest of it. And that gives rise to the other part of what you do, which is the desperate need to share and talk and feel and do all of that. How are you feeling about these two completely different sides at this particular moment?
I think the two different sides is an interesting one, because I operated like that for a long time, like had these two lives, the corporate woman and then the creative person, the creative side. And I've merged them a lot in the last year to sort of make this one universe where both things can coexist. And COVID's a good example of that. Both things are affected, the personal world, in the creative world, but also on the work front. It's very tricky out there in the market, and employment is suffering, and we're doing everything we can to help the industry. But the two things go hand in hand. I sort of don't differentiate between the worlds anymore, which is kind of interesting, and it took a long time to do that. But they're coexisting and they're playing into one another, and just getting, like everybody else, getting up each day, doing what we can to make a difference in the world on the work front and on the creative side. So it's a challenge, lots happening. But yeah, I might start with the corporate world. The corporate world, the job that I do, it is in human resources, and we've got thousands of workers out on any given day. So we were probably the first cab off the rank to get involved in redeployment of workers around the country, around the globe. Actually, we're in 60 countries, and doing what we could to move people from one job into another job when they were being stood down. And that took up, an enormous amount of positive energy to play a part in that work. And we were really successful in doing that. So I feel like we're doing good things in a very tricky situation. But the creative side sort of, I feel like it's benefited. I always look for the silver lining rather than the negative. And I feel like my creative world has benefited from the situation we're in one way. And it's because I have more time to do all of these online meetings, and I can be in 3 different countries in one day, and broaden the sort of community that I have in the creative poetry world. And my voice is getting amplified in a different way because of this new huge online community as a writer. So I look for the silver linings always in any given situation, even though it's really challenging right now.
You talk about being a writer, and yet I think about you as a talker. So when I think about poetry, for some reason, lately, for me, it translates into the spoken word. And maybe that's because there's a real emergence at the moment of these poetry slams and poetry nights. And maybe it's just coming into my world, but it seems to be, it's become almost cool to be a poet again. Am I wrong? Or am I just behind the times?
No, you are definitely right. I like to say that it's poetry is making a massive cool comeback, and it's sort of broadening up the audience and also the people who participate. And you've absolutely hit the nail on the head in the way the poetry slams are really starting to get this big traction in society now. And I think it's because people want to use their voice more, and people are more prepared these days to speak out and to put themselves on a stage and say what they think and be more open about taboo topics that were not spoken about in the past quite as much. So people are finding their voices about all kinds of things, and poetry is a vehicle for that. You can do so much with the short, sharp word in getting a message out there. So you are getting a lot of activists and a lot of people who carry a message, and a lot of people who want to be heard, that are really starting to get into the poetry scene. There's a massive young community coming in, and there's still every age now participating. It's moved from being a very academic sort of poetry, sort of writing style and genre, to being really cool, contemporary, very current, very hip. And the slam scene is amazing. Like it's you get a real adrenaline rush. I don't know how you can say adrenaline with poetry in one sentence, but you can now.
Whatever gets you off, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's definitely out of comfort zone. There's incredible poets out there, and I think it's really great.
You're talking about, when you answer the question, you're talking about opening up about experiences, as well as speaking about topics that probably were considered taboo. And in your bio, in your story, you talk about how you were bullied before, and how that basically sort of kind of inspire you to use a spoken word to basically help people and empower others. As a person who was bullied growing up, I always thought that I am who I am today, partly because the lessons that I learned from all the bullying that happened in my younger days. And I'm not in any way saying that it is a good thing for people to grow or learn from. But do you feel that you learn things from I wouldn't, for lack of a better word, victim of a bully?
I definitely think so. I think childhood plays an enormous part in it, in the DNA of a person. And from my experience, I guess, as a child, I was bullied. I moved high schools in sort of the second year of high school to a new place, away from all my friends. So I was the new kid on the block, and I was verbally bullied for a long time, and it was very much a fatigue. It's fatiguing, and it's relentless, and it hurts. And I coped at the time just by keeping my head down, ignoring it, and trying to get past it. And in the end, I snapped, and I found a way to sort of fight back in a time and an era where nobody really did fight back. It was just silent, and you just sort of didn't really complain about bullying at the time. And I think it can do one of two. You can take one of two paths in anything like that, in any kind of life experience. You can either feel like you're the victim and feel hard done by and see all the negative, and you can take that path, or you may well suffer from serious anxiety, or really have some need some help to get out of the situation. Or you can gain strength from it, and I chose the latter. Not necessarily immediately, but over a period of time, I learned to build up this resilience and this inner strength and coping mechanisms to deal with the daily status quo at school. And also I had a tricky home life. So I just found ways to build up this inner resilience and begin to be focused about what I wanted in life, how I was going to get out of the situation myself and what I could control in the situation. And it wasn't something that happened overnight, but it was something that I learned quite quickly, quite young. And I do coach people now, on some of those resilience techniques and on trying to find ways to deal with situations. And I do a lot with youths in this space, but and in the corporate world as well, in corporate bullying and harassment, prevention strategies. So I definitely believe I always say my superpower is willpower. And I believe I learned it because I had such a tricky childhood at school and at home, and I had to learn to deal with it. And I am a positive person, or maybe not always, but I try to be. And I wanted to do good with that experience and help others who maybe haven't found that pathway out of it yet.
Natasha, I don't know if you know this or not, but one thing that I share in common with Kelly is that we grew up with Famous Five.
Oh, okay. I think I was a Nancy Drew girl, so I was definitely a Nancy Drew girl. So the two of you, the Famous Five, I think was you're just even a bit young. Sorry.
My daughter reads Famous Five now. I have a teenage daughter. She loves the Famous Five as well.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I don't know about you, Dr. Vincent. It was my complete escape from reality. I used to lie in bed at night till the very early hours of the morning with the Famous Five books and any Enid Blyton book I could get my hands on, actually, and a torch. And I would read until I literally fell asleep under the duvet, usually 2 a.m., 3 a.m. I'm still a massive insomniac, I think, because I just devoured all hours by reading Famous Five books.
That's too funny.
It's an escape. It was like just
It really
beautiful
is, and it's
writing and an
such
escape.
the characterization and everything. I think it's one thing that is very unique. That the author Enid Blyton had was that how you pack these characters and different perception of each characters and explain it to kids, which I think is just awesome.
Exactly. Yeah, it's beautiful imagery and everything, and you can just really get engrossed. I could still read those books today. I really could. I read them so many times over and over, and that's the beauty of writing and characters in good stories or good poems as well. Can have characters, but it's a sign of a good book that it lasts such a long time.
I'm going to ask a little bit more about poetry because we're talking about sort of it re-emerging and becoming cool, but the history of rap is based around poetry, and the entire sort of spoken word with music is around giving voice to pain, giving voice to trauma, giving voice to experiences in a verbal, very charismatic way. Rap is very charismatic and it's very engaging. So it's been around for a long time, and it's been adopted by youth along the way as an activist to create an activist voice. I mean, every rap song you listen to is an act of activism. So it's kind of come almost full circle in a lot of ways. So just weirdly, do you ever listen to rap?
I do a little bit.
Or do you rap?
I don't rap, and I can't sing at all, and I don't play a musical instrument, so I'm not remotely musical. But there are a lot of synergies with slam poetry and the rap scene in that when you're you can read a poem and you can just read it off the page as you would with another literary piece, or you can really put your emotion into the piece to convey a message and try and leave the audience really feeling something. And that's got a lot of synergies with rap. And like I try to get a beat into some of my work where you really have
You've got a cadence.
Yeah, it becomes a performance. So you really want to try and get the audience in the palm of your hand so that your message gets the biggest impact it can in sort of a very small amount of words and a small amount of time. And that's the beauty of it. It's sort of this blend of bringing the literary word into a performance. And I think it's getting traction as well with the youth scene and really making this sort of comeback, because there are so many new forums to take it out as a vehicle into the world. you've got Insta poets who are putting, out 2-line poems with a little message in it, and they're going viral. I do this as well. I'm on Instagram, and I've got YouTube short. I do short poetry movies, 3 minutes long.
You've actually written books, and so this one is Graffiti Lane, which is a book of poems, which is, I've read a couple of them, and it's quite urban, and obviously, just with the cover itself. And you've just released, this is the new one that you've just released, which is called Punch and Judy. Fabulous title. I mean, because anyone who knows about Punch and Judy is familiar with the puppet, the idea of it. And this is an activist book. This is a full activist book. This is about domestic violence.
Yeah, that's right.
Why? It's not something. Yeah.
I guess both of the books came with sort of social. Whatever I write, I actually write fiction. I write short stories and novels as well, and magazine pieces and poetry. And always the underlying theme is just around equity and being resilient and overcoming obstacles, or being, if you're being kicked down in any way, finding ways to fight back. So the first book, Graffiti Lane, really the themes in that one were about anti-bullying, around childhood bullying, coming from my own experiences, a bit about corporate bullying, and around mental health, and that whole resilience piece around just rising up and finding your wings, to chase your dreams. And I used the graffiti theme in the first book to just make it accessible and cool and vibrant and urban. And I like to write about urban life because I like to look for the beauty in the not so normal things. For example, the beauty in a fluorescent light giving, shining a light in darkness, or, a wall of graffiti. There's often really beautiful art somewhere in there, not the vandalism, but the beautiful murals that we see now often carry a message as well. So the first book, that was the sort of theme, which came from the childhood sort of experience at school. The second book, Punch and Judy, which it comes out next week. It should hit the shelves on the 1st of August. I started off writing. I had a few love poems I had written. I'm not a great romance sort of writer at all, but I had been writing about modern romance, around romance through technology, and sort of I had all of these sort of modern little snippets of poems that had a love theme. But I also write about turbulent love, because nobody's got a flat relationship that's just great every day. There's challenges in any kind of relationship. So I started writing about that, and then it expanded into turbulence, turbulent problems, marriages that were, in trouble, or a relationship that was really starting to get into that abusive scenario. And that was when I decided, all right, I want a book on this, and I really want to use this to create a voice for women who were experiencing domestic violence and didn't have their own voice. So the book morphed out of just this bunch of poems that sort of took on a life of their own, and I really wanted to get this domestic violence theme in. And it's a real big problem. There are so many people out there that are in relationships behind closed doors, and they can't speak out for various reasons, and it's not always easy just to get up and leave. And the characters, I came up with the Punch and Judy concept from the puppets, the being sort of a puppet master behind the scenes in a relationship and controlling someone, and the being tied up in strings, and being this wooden object for someone. And the Punch and Judy era of Victorian puppetry, really at the time was satire and was designed to be funny, but when you look back on it now, it was an abusive puppet hitting his wife and a challenging relationship. So I created fictional characters. So it became a fictional book of poetry, but it really is about people who cannot speak out for themselves, to try and just help them, find a different way to generate conversation about a topic that I believe really matters. And we need to try and make a difference.
A lot of the things that you do right and champion for require a lot of empathy. Do you take it onto yourselves, and how do you manage so that you're still preserving your mental health but still able to relate to those issues that you want to talk about?
I think I just try and listen to people, really, I guess. And I do get a lot of people reach out because of the writing, and reach out about their personal experience, or that the writing has jarred them in a certain way. And so you do get people reach out, and I just try and um ask them how they're feeling, what is their experience, and just listen. If I don't have the words to help someone and I don't know what to say, I just try and reassure them that there are people there just to listen to them and support them, and that there are people that will be there and just provide that support mechanism. So I don't try and promise people I can change the situation for them or the world for them, because I can't do that for everybody, and it would become mentally taxing. But I do want to listen, and I do want to be there for people if I can be, and open up the dialogue, and then just be a listening shoulder. And sometimes that is enough. People just want to be heard and know that there are people there who care. And I do care about people, and I do care about people who are struggling, and who are in very difficult situations. And I like to try and give people hope as well, that and I can relate in certain ways from childhood, from that, where I had incredibly difficult circumstances, and you can hopefully forge a path out of there with a good mindset and determination and hard work and resilience and a good support mechanism. So I can try and guide them towards a support mechanism. But yeah, I preserve myself through the writing. It's like a stress relief, and I don't find it taxing. I don't find it burdensome, or it doesn't ever feel like work. I really love it. I really sort of just, I love it. It helps me sleep, and it helps me to live life to its fullest. And I feel like I'm giving back in some small way. So it never feels taxing, ever. Maybe at a poetry slam, if I'm up against somebody really good, then I get stressed out.
That's fair enough. You need a bit of adrenaline.
Then you've got judges holding up a 7.5 and a 9.2 and a 9.8.
Well, that is the competitive streak in you.
Yeah, that's the most stressful situation, more than anything else.
Can I ask, you manage a Fortune 500 company, Adecco, on the one hand. You write poetry, and you do the spoken word, and you have been traveling enormously up until COVID with all of that, and also with work. So there's a lot of travel, there's a lot of different sides. You have children. You are married to, you refer to him as your soulmate. I think a lot of people would find they would be very jealous of that term, because I think a lot of people are looking for their soulmate. So there are a lot of things that you're ticking boxes. I see you're very active on social media. You're finding time to, post there. You've been on TV recently. I mean, we can tick a lot of boxes. So, and this is not going to be the nicest question. I'm not here to compliment you, as much as I think you're phenomenal. Do you think that the way you live and the fact that you're so competent and so incredible is a mirror for other women who are not doing that well?
Or men.
Well, forget about the men. I mean, absolutely. Or men. But specifically, it shines that light.
I think it's about, like, I guess, clearing out the things that you don't want in your life. And for me, like, I haven't got this perfect sort of world or anything. I wish I did. I don't have a super perfect world. Sometimes my husband does fly in, fly out, for instance, and he flew into WA, and he hasn't flown out very much of late because of border problems. And so you've got your things to deal with in any sort of person's home. But what I do, and you deal with them, and you do what you do. But what I try and do in terms of the way that I live life is, I try and clear out negative thinking, and I try and get up each morning with...
I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to be clear, when you say clearing out negative things, you didn't mean the husband, right? It's not...
I definitely didn't mean the husband.
Okay.
He is my...
Just to be sure, because the way that you frame the answer is almost like, if you want to be as successful as I am, have a fly in, fly out husband.
Oh no, he's amazing. I really miss him, actually. That's my he is my soulmate. I've been married more than 20 years, and he I really miss him when he's away. No. What I mean is, I live life by looking for the positive each morning. So it's very easy to get burdened with what's happening and what the challenges are. Even the pandemic at the moment, it's very overwhelming and it's a challenging thing to deal with. And I feel it at work, I feel it at home. But I do try and get up in the morning, and I guess I always try to live life by looking for the gratitude in things, and even in small things, whether it's a hot meal on the table or a hug from the kids, or just going outside for a walk and enjoying what is outdoors. I look for the positives in daily life every day. I try and not carry over the previous day's stresses, even though that's can be hard to do. I do get up in the morning and I go for a walk, clear the head, and start each day fresh. So life isn't perfect. I've got my own challenges, but you can you can make your own choices, I guess. So I think it's about embracing the choices, making ones that work for you, cut out negativity where you can, and being grateful for the things that we do have in life. And it makes an enormous difference to having a sunny outlook.
Fair enough.
I think this is time for our Living Out Loud podcast signature question, because you already talked about the things that you are grateful for. And I think it's time for us to ask the flip side. So what are the things that you are fearful of? What are the things that you are afraid of in life?
Well, that's a tricky question. I guess I'm fearful for around family. Family are at the sort of core of everything I do. So, and by family, it's my kids, my husband, and extended family that are overseas right now. I don't actually have I don't have a good relationship with my mum, so I don't speak to my mum at all. My father passed away when I was very young. He was in his 40s actually. But so I'm very grateful for the family that I do have, and I get fearful that something might happen to them. I worry about the health crisis we have right now, and I have family in South Africa that they're not a first world country as we are, and their healthcare is not so good. My sister is a nurse, so I'm fearful about impact to family, and I try and deal with that in the same way about gratitude. So I'm grateful that I do have a job and I can help them where I can help them. I call them and talk to them and make sure that we're trying to have some humor in life. And it's the small things. You can make a small difference in trying to overcome those fears and just again embrace them. I like to face them head on as well. I don't like to let things get me down and to overshadow life. So if I'm scared of something, generally I rip the band-aid off and I sort of jump out the aeroplane and hope the parachute opens. I face it front on. I tend not to be too fearful.
Clearly, the parachute has opened. I just want to swap. Yeah, well, you're here. I just want to swap a little bit to. Obviously, we've spoken a lot about the poetry, and I know that one of your poetry books was given to the Oscars, to everyone at the Oscars. So I mean, you are very well recognized and internationally recognized. So it's pretty amazing that you've achieved that. But let's just go to the flip side, working within the human resource market at the moment with COVID. Where are you seeing businesses onboarding and where are you seeing them dropping staff? I mean, what is the biggest, you said you're kind of taking staff and redirecting them to other industries. What industries are picking up and what are dropping?
I'll start with the dropping. So we saw an immediate impact from COVID with aviation. We had a number of very large clients in aviation, and all of the workforces stood down, and impacting, of course, hospitality, retail, sports, and the arts. And they were probably the immediate big ones. On the flip side, literally within the first week of that same impact, we saw enormous surges in other industries. So industries that have been growing, as in more employees, ramping up on their temporary casual workforce and scaling to cope with different sort of demand from consumers and from the public right now, have been call centers is a big one, because we are demanding services over the phone and online, and many offshore call centers as well were having their own challenges. So a lot of that work has been brought on shore, and numbers increased inside the call centers to cope with consumer calls, looking for financial information or, life information around what benefits they're entitled to, or, different sets of services around internet at home and things as people scale up home offices. So call center is a big one. Other industries have been relating to consumer buying patterns, so online buying and associated transport and logistics, warehouse work, manufacturing onshore of different products that have surged in demand has been another space we've had enormous workload and really managed to deploy actually thousands of workers into new spaces. And of course the other one would be healthcare, and not necessarily just nurses and doctors, but also the associated community work. So services where, for example, aged people at home, or disability people at home, or vulnerable people in their home can no longer necessarily go to services they may have used before in clinics or in GPs, or accessing food and things like that. So there is a lot of community support and homework needed, workers taking these services to them in the home, and different ways of providing healthcare services. So not necessarily the same roles, kind of a little bit different. Technology would be another one. Everybody is online and using technology in a different way, not just in businesses but also at home. So that's created new demand as well, and we've bridged that gap by really working with the with candidates actually to try and help them to upskill as rapidly as we can help them to do so. For example, somebody coming out of an aviation industry, upskilling them through a very rapid course to be able to do call center work and give them that customer service, and customer centricity experience in a very rapid way, has allowed us to redeploy from entirely different industries. It's been challenging, but it's been rewarding as well. I think there's a lot more work we can do to help people through this and ensure they're employable for jobs of the future and won't look the same as they did before the pandemic.
Dr. Vincent, you had another question or two?
Yeah, just a follow-up question on upskilling and also making sure that you are employable in this uncertain future. From what you do, what would be your professional advice or opinion that you can share with people who, say, for example, are not very secure with their job or have already lost their job and they're looking for new ones and preparing themselves to be employable in the future?
One of the things I advise the most to any candidate is that the biggest skills we're looking for right now, it's about softer skills, and it's around agility. So being prepared to come into the workplace, into a new job, and embracing new ways of working, social distancing in the workplace, just new ways that companies are tackling their work on a day-to-day basis to remain sustainable through this, and so to be agile and to embrace new things. And if you can come in with that attitude, employers now are more open to taking people without experience in a particular industry than they ever have been before. So I think people can feel, you're going to feel impacted if you've been stood down and you're out of work. But what is encouraging is there is this appetite to bring people in without the skills, if the agile attitude is there and the willingness to learn on the job some new skills and techniques. It's probably the most encouraging I've seen employers ever in being open to workers of different backgrounds. And I think that's great for diversity, it's great for growth, it's great for careers, but that attitude has to be there to be agile and willing to make that shift, because it is going to shift. So that's what I coach people on. You can upskill, and employers are prepared to upskill and invest in skilling the workforce up, but you've got to have this agile attitude. So that's the one thing that I try and encourage people to bring to the table and try and demonstrate in an interview. And I coach them on ways they can do that in interview as well. The other thing I encourage as well is embrace the way that you're going to have to apply for a job. Because before, you would tend to go in for a face-to-face interview and meet and greet people, and you could put your best foot forward in person, typically. And now you can't do that. It's more than likely going to be done online with either a video interview or a phone interview, and potentially some aptitude testing online as well. So you have to be prepared to embrace the way that you're going to have to apply for a role. But those two things are really the big ones. And the candidates that I see coming through, and we're getting a lot of candidates through for sure, the ones that are successful come with those things, those attributes, more than any other hard skill. We can coach on hard skill and put you through a course.
I love the fact that you are bringing these different parts of yourself together and that you excel in different areas. I mean, to me, when I look at you as a woman, I think of you a little bit like a superwoman. But I think what you've said is that your attitude is what carries you through, and the way that you think about things, and the fact that you have a gratitude, belief and practice. And I think those things, when I talk to other women who I think are superwomen, a lot of them are intrinsically happy. They're happy in here, and whatever goes on around there tends to be, stuff that they deal with and bat away and cope with. But what actually sits inside them is a general level of joy and happiness for who they are and what they do. And maybe that's, the message at the end of this, is that you can do so many different things and excel when you feel in a power. Am I right? Does that kind of depict you a bit?
Yeah, it definitely resonates. My favorite phrase is something when I was probably about 17 or 18 and entering the workforce. I had a boss. He was sort of a sales culture, and his favorite phrase that he used to sort of say to my team was that only you can spread your wings and fly. And I think of this phrase every day in like any circumstances around, like I don't let people clip my wings. I try and spread them. I try and just fly. And, and I like to go new places, try new things, live out of the comfort zone. And I honestly live and breathe that phrase. I don't know why it's the one that's resonated my whole life, but it has. And it just comes from living life to the fullest. Life is there to be lived. And so I do spend my time wisely. That's the other thing. So I'm quite particular about what I spend my time on, and I do it on things with intent and with purpose that make me happy and joyful, and not so negative. And if I don't have to do the negative stuff, then I don't. Sometimes you have to in at work or in life, but I try and gravitate towards the positive, and spread my wings as often as I can.
Can add mind reader as one of your credential, because literally the last question I have was, what did you learn growing up that you still apply today and want to teach to others? And you literally answer it before I even ask the question.
Well, there you
go.
go.
It is that, yeah. Because I think the person who clips your wings is usually yourself.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Yourself.
We put the limitation to what we can do, like in our mind, and a lot of people struggle with that, and a lot of people don't realize that until someone actually pointed that out to them.
Exactly.
I've been reading a book lately, an audiobook called 101 Essays to Change the Way You Think, and there's a little bit in there about happiness and sort of the way we define happiness and how we provide a ceiling point for our own happiness, where we think happiness is and where we feel that it's when we've achieved it. And it's almost like we're unable to kind of scale past where our ceiling point for happiness is, and how limiting so many of our views are around the idea of what is happy, what is contentment, and how we kind of vacillate between the top and the bottom. And it's really interesting when someone points out, you start rethinking, what is limitless mean, really? Yeah. I don't know, what is limitless to you, Haley?
Oh, I think it's it's not living inside the box. It's sort of thinking like there is no box. People talk about glass ceilings and hitting the ceiling and, four walls and thinking outside the box. I think like there is no box. Like there's so many, just life is there to try, new experiences. So I like to, I don't believe there's any box there at all.
Dr.
And I like to break the rules a bit as well. So even that's why I like poetry, because, and especially, modern urban contemporary slam poetry, it breaks all of the, I'm sure there will be academic poets from, a century ago that will be turning in their grave, but I break all of the poetry rules, because that's what life is about.
Absolutely.
Thinking like there is no box.
Were you going to ask me what limitless for me?
Yeah, I want to know what limitless means to you. I mean, I'm interested.
Well, I don't know if I have the answer to that, but maybe the closest answer that I have to that is when people ask me, as an entrepreneur or a business person, when people ask me, what do you classify as success, and at what point do you think that you are rich financially? And my answer has always been that I feel that I want to be to a point where if I go to the supermarket and I want to buy something, I would just take it and put it in a basket without having to look at the price tag. And it can be a sandwich, or it can be anything. Like, instead of having to go through the catalog and find what is on special today or this week, I could just take it because I want that. And I think that probably is the fair definition of happiness and success for me, because you have everything that you need, you have everything that you want, and you are within your means to get that.
I love that you look at it from a financial point of view. It's really interesting that if you're financially secure, then everything else flows. And Kelly is, all about limitless fear. And so that's the thing, is everyone has, from your upbringing, everyone has an idea of where their happy place is. What is, mine would probably be love. I would probably define happiness for me would not be money, and it would not be any of the other things or success. It would be love, and how I define that. So we all, thank God, we all don't want the same thing. Otherwise, shit, we'd all be after it like crazy.
And one thing to add to your point, Natasha, was also that I remember growing up, my dad always said that there is a difference between happiness or being happy and being successful. And my dad always defined it as being successful, or success is having what you want, while happiness is wanting what you have.
Well, I think that is very true. I think that is very true. Some of these themes have been so interesting today. This podcast, I think, has raised lots of issues around areas where there's challenge, but also where there is joy and success. And Kelly, I'm so grateful that you shared your time with us, and you've been generous about your life and the things that you've done. I'm really looking forward to hopping online onto one of the poetry events that you're part of. If I want to get involved or just follow you or whatever, do you have a website?
I do. Very easy. It is kellivannelson.com, and all my social media handles are in there as well. I'm on all the social platforms and quite prominent on there, so you can find me everywhere.
And this is the book that's coming out. Where will we be able to get this from? We'll be able to get this from your website, or?
Yeah, website. It will be everywhere. It's already with Amazon and Booktopia for pre-orders. My books are typically in Dimmicks, Harry Hartog, everywhere, all the major retailers. You should be able to find it, and it should be available in all countries as well.
I'm just going to spell your name. Everywhere. I'm going to spell your name out for everyone. So it's Kelly, Kelly, and it's VAN, and then NELSON, just so that people know exactly how to spell that, to hop on and go and have a look. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Vincent.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
I love that you always ask questions I haven't thought of. And Kelly, thank you for spending time with us. And I I'm very
Thank you
jealous.
for having me.
I'm very jealous of your bright white light, and I'm going to go and find a brighter light so that I can shine as brightly.
They must
Anyway,
be really strong light bulbs, I think, in the
that's
UCs
the way to
there.
go. Thank you so much. Yeah, you've been listening.
Thanks again for having me. Yeah.
Pleasure. You've been listening to the Living Out Loud podcast with Natasha Moy and Dr. Vincent. We'll be back next week with another fantastic interview. Bye.